Okay, hello friends. We're going to work now in program number 9, Rays and Initiations webinar commentary on part 2 of that book, a lengthy section of the book which follows the discussion of the 14 rules. We've been discussing the contrast between white magic and black, or really more so between the white magicians and the black magicians, and the kind of initiations they take. Preliminarily the same, the first two initiations of the threshold, but the black magician does this simply for the sake of preserving his own effectiveness in what he wishes to accomplish. Therefore, he needs control of the physical and etheric elementals, the physical etheric elemental, and he needs purity of the astral vehicle, at least a one-pointed directedness in desire towards that which he wishes to achieve. So DK has just a little bit more to say about it. Then he's going to turn to the Great White Lodge. He says to the black magician at this third opportunity, and that third opportunity is the third initiation, the first initiation of discipleship, we might call it, in terms of the Syrian Lodge. A person becomes a disciple, or at least a probationary disciple, in relation to the Syrian Lodge, and it's the first solar initiation and the third planetary initiation. At this third opportunity, the door of initiation presents an insuperable barrier and obstacle, because it requires love and wisdom to pass through it. That which lies on the further side of the door is only accessible to the energy of love. It is the entry really into the hierarchy of love and into the ashram, certainly. To the true spiritual neophyte, notice how he uses that word true occasionally in order to discriminate between simply, let us say, a spiritual neophyte. The door connotes overcoming, and overcoming all that the personality presents as a barrier. The ancient authority of the personalities ended at that third initiation. We shall not consider further the approach of the black brothers, and notice he still uses the word brothers, because after all, we are all monads in the one life, so we cannot help but be brothers, no matter in what direction we may be tending within time and space and within relativity. So we shall not further consider further the approach of the black brothers to that door, but shall confine ourselves to a consideration of the great initiations of the Great White Lodge. And you know, DK did give the story of what the word black meant. It's black power, it's matter, it's materialism, it's the darkness of matter and lower form, as opposed to the direction which leads to life and to light. This door of initiation is connected with the great problem of what HPB calls the mystery of electricity. It has to do, I suppose, electricity is all about relationship in a way. Is about relationship between units of different kinds. The mystery of electricity. The door is itself an electrical phenomenon, essentially. It is a relationship between energy units which prevents passage for those to those who are out of tune with the kind of relationship it is, and allows passage for those who are in harmony. Of course, as he is correctly saying, having said this, even if you do not understand my meaning, you can, however, grasp the possibility that being electrical in nature, it can easily present an obstructing force, a repelling energy to the approach of the aspirant. If the aspirant is not of the same quality and has not achieved the same energy relationships within himself as the door represents and as that which lies on the further side of the door. It would seem that the door would have to consist of energies which are similar to, or maybe even identical to, that which lies on the further side of the door. And unless there is the qualification of the aspirant in terms of the kinds of energy relationships he presents in his various vehicles, there will be no passage. Of course, that's not technical electrical language. I'll leave that to the, the astute fifth ray types to speak of the technicalities of what passage would mean from the electrical condition that the aspirant finds himself in on the as he approaches the door, and that which the door and the further side of the door, that of which they consist. So it can easily present an obstructing force, a repelling energy to that to the approach of the aspirant, if the aspirant is not in harmony with the type of energy configuration of which the door consists. The door will consist of a certain energy configuration, and only if the energies of the aspirant are harmonious with that configuration can there be passage through. And this is the correct way to look at it, he says. It is only when the electrical energy of which the door is constituted and that of which the man is constructed at any particular time synchronize and vibrate in unison that the aspirant can pass. So the door already represents a higher form of energy than the aspirant will have unless he definitely is prepared. So this is the method of hermetic sealing, the various levels and fields, dimensions, I'll call them. The various dimensions are hermetically sealed from each other according to difference in electrical relationship between the units that are found in those different dimensions. So it is only when the electrical energy of the door is constituted, of which the door is constituted. I think I'll just I'll make that one of those highlighted sections. It is only when the electrical energy of which the door is constituted and that of which the man is constructed at any particular time synchronize and vibrate in unison. So it's a question of wave forms and whether the waves cancel each other, interfere with each other. A condition of non-interference must exist. Only then can the aspirant pass through into greater light. So a condition of non-interference without wave cancellation, if we look at this in terms of waves, non-interference without wave cancellation, can the passage be achieved? Then there are no, I want to call it numerical barriers or vibrational barriers. This gives you a somewhat new and rather abstruse definition of initiation, but it certainly does tell us that we have to be vibrating to a certain frequency, and we have to have a certain type of harmonious condition in, let us say, the particular vehicle which is in question at a particular initiation in order to pass through this barrier. So DK is emphasizing the idea that we're not dealing with the open door of initiation, we're dealing with a barrier consisting of electrical relationships between various units. And all of this will have to do with the science of vibration, the science of resonance, even what we might call the science of harmonious relationship. Nevertheless, as science arrives at a better understanding of the human being as an electrical unit of power and light, electrical unit of power and light, and of his triple mechanism as created of three aspects of electricity. A truer comprehension of the significance of initiation will eventuate, and we can say with confidence that this will be the contribution of the fifth ray groups, who tend, to understand creation in terms of electricity and in general in terms of energy. So it is a question of harmonization, a question of harmonization and consequent passage through without friction and wave cancellation. It is a question of resonance. All of these things have to be explored if we're going to understand the door of initiation from a more fifth ray perspective. The three fires of which all things are made are electrical in nature. So they are involving attraction and repulsion. Okay, so thus involving attraction and repulsion. And symbolically speaking, it is only when fire by friction is dominated by solar fire, the frictional aspect prevents passage. We can say that. The frictional aspect prevents passage and the correct harmony to allow passage. So it is only when fire by friction is dominated by solar fire that the first four initiations can be taken. Solar fire is prominent at the first four initiations, solar fire prominent at the first four, culminating in the fifth initiation, in which these two fires are subordinated to electric fire emanating from the monad and giving a new revelation. And it is significant here, let's see, culminating in the fifth initiation, in which these two fires are subordinated to electric fire emanating from the monad, giving a new revelation. What is the fifth initiation called? The initiation of revelation. And note that at the third initiation, the spirit aspect is introduced to consciousness, but not in the same degree of fullness as at the fifth initiation. So at the third initiation, it is said that we make a conscious contact with the monad. But at the fifth initiation, that contact with the electric fire from the monad is so powerful that a new revelation far beyond what can be achieved within the causal body is conferred. And yeah, he goes on to say the monadic process begins at the third initiation. It might be added that the third initiation culminating in the Transfiguration, so perhaps, we might say there are aspects of the third degree leading to the culmination as the Transfiguration. So it might be added that the third initiation culminating in the Transfiguration is taken on the three higher levels of the mental plane. This is what we normally call the plane of higher mind. And, the causal body is still going to exist. The causal body still exists, but there is contact with subplane 1 of the higher mental plane. And so even though the causal body still remains on the second subplane of the higher mental plane. There is, is it contact? There is the evocation of the lowest aspect of the spiritual triad, which is located on the first subplane of the higher mental plane. So this third initiation is taken, well, perhaps on all three levels, and I wonder if the different aspects of this initiation, it does seem when we study the life of St. Paul that he went through different phases of taking this initiation, and it seems as the later initiations are entered that there are a number of phases, and they spread out over years, maybe even over centuries in the case of some of the higher initiations. It is, so it's taken on the three higher levels of the mental plane, and it is therefore upon the, fourth level of the mental plane that the aspirant first of all stands before the door seeking initiation. Well, even the first initiation 1 and 2 are taken in the causal body, and the causal body is definitely located by the time initiation starts on the second sublevel of the higher mental plane. So let's just say that it makes sense. This makes sense as the aspirant is outside the door, symbolically speaking, and the fourth subplane of the mental plane is outside the higher mental plane. At least vibratorily, it's not included in the higher mental plane. That electrical unit or phenomenon of electricity, which we call the fourth kingdom in nature, and this is really a different way of looking at it, isn't it? I mean, we can only imagine what revelations will come when we consider man electrically, the human unit and the entire fourth kingdom in nature. So let us consider man electrically, and this will bring an entirely new view of the nature of the human race and the human being. So that electrical unit or phenomenon of electricity, which we call the fourth kingdom in nature, on this fourth subplane of the mental plane, electrically ejects the unit of electricity which is ready to be absorbed into a higher form of electricity. Now, this is so interesting because from another point of view, he tells us the human race repels the initiate of the fourth degree. But this is a technical term, so some sort of electrical repulsion is involved in this rejection or ejection of the individual unit, which or who is a candidate for the fourth degree. So, we know what a difficult life people who are taking the fourth degree have, and how they seem to be forced to detach from everything, and how they seem to lose everything they hold dear, whether it is other people or places, a country, or anything to which they may be attached, life itself. So the esoteric ejection at the fourth degree involves the electrical phenomenon of repulsion. And so you kind of wonder whether similar polarities are involved there. In other words, two positives will repel, two negatives will repel. So I would just say here that let us remember that similar or that the same, that units of the same polarity repel. And we can even see this with a magnet. If we place two positive poles together, or maybe two negative poles, but positive and negative do attract. Fire by friction dies out, and solar fire takes its place. That's really the Buddhi, and it comes in strongly at the fourth initiation, the first real representation of solar fire. I mean, we get it on the higher mental plane, but we truly have it on the Buddhic plane. Fire by friction dies out, and solar fire takes its place, and the relationship between the two higher forms of electricity becomes established. So solar fire and electric fire are related at the third degree, and fire by friction is on the wane, though it can still be used. So the ejection, this is such an interesting concept. In other words, the human family repels the unit that is about to enter more completely into the fifth kingdom of nature, and let's just say that repulsion of the individual unit by the unit which we call the human race aids in the processes of detachment, which are so necessary if the unit is to achieve the freedom of the cosmic ethers. Well, when we start passing through that ourselves, we will know something of the process. Right now, we simply have the anticipation of the process, and we have people passing through the second initiation, which resonates with the fourth initiation, thinking that somehow they are passing through the fourth initiation. Their lives are very difficult. We might expect that in an initiation that has to do with the astral body, and naturally with changing the direction and intensity of many desires. But it's not the real thing yet. It just gives a taste of that which is to come. It is solar fire which forms and likewise guards the door of initiation at the first four initiations. So unless we have achieved the requisite level of solar fire, then we cannot pass. Unless we have achieved the requisite level, or vibrational level of solar fire, we cannot pass. So, just how is, technically speaking, solar fire different from fire by friction? We'll have to leave that for the future. But one can understand that it would be a far more harmonious and unitive fire, and would be far less involved in what we might call collision, the rubbing, the bumping, the chafing of units with each other. It's more involved in rendering units within the same field cohesive. Well, we can look forward to the time when we can actually examine these different types of electricity. Master D.K. said in the Treatise on Cosmic Fire that we don't yet know about the middle form of electricity, a kind of a neutral electricity. It's the central type of electricity. About that, we don't really understand it yet, he says. It hasn't been, quote-unquote, discovered yet. It is the electrical fire which forms the door of initiation for those initiations which guard the way to the higher evolution. So will this be at the 5th degree or the 6th degree? There was a time when the way of higher evolution could be trodden by those who were taking the fifth degree. Now it is not so. So I wonder, you think about the door is of a similar harmonious nature to, or even the same nature to, that which lies beyond it. So there are these different doors. Maybe we say, let's just say, maybe there are 7 doors of electric fire guarding the way of higher evolution. But only one is correct for us, and yet we could pass through any of them because our will is free in this matter. But you kind of wonder, do we begin to feel the nature of the higher door, and whether we attune with it? I would say that this choice, this decision, is based upon similarity of vibration. Similarity of vibration. So maybe we start to come in resonance with a particular path and its door due to something deep within us related to the way we descended from on high. And at that point, our decision may well be made on the basis of our rapport with a certain door and then that which lies beyond it, because the door is of a similar nature to that which lies beyond it. Oh, the interesting thing, though, is that we may pass through any of the doors according to our choice, perhaps except the path of Earth service, where we understand that Sanat Kumara indicates to the various masters, the high initiates, which of them is needed to remain with the path of Earth service. And there are not so many, we are told, who do remain with our Earth scheme. So maybe there we don't have such free choice, and yet, well, I really shouldn't be saying that, because the Buddha chose the path of Earth service, even though, technically speaking, it was not his path. And I guess that would mean that Sanat Kumara had not tapped him for that particular task, but so great was the Buddha's understanding of and compassion for humanity that he sought to remain. And, you kind of wonder, why is it that the Christ is remaining on the path of Earth service for 2 bodhisattvic terms of 5,000 years, 2,500, 2,500? Is it also because of a great love and attachment, in the right sense of the word, to humanity? Well, anyway, it seemed that Sanat Kumara approved and even indicated the 5,000-year term for the Christ. One can begin to gather that from what the Tibetan says. Anyway, the door as an obstruction. This is what we're trying to get in mind. We are trying to understand the door as an obstruction consisting of a certain electrical configuration. All fires are essentially electrical. The first 4 doors have barriers consisting of varieties of solar fire. the door to the fifth degree and beyond seem to have to consist of barriers of electric fire. Now, what are the technicalities there? That's certainly beyond me to know, and I would say that it has a lot to do, that subject has a lot to do with the secrets of initiation and is not yet revealed to our contemporary science that is only dealing with the lowest aspect of electricity, that which relates to the third aspect, and actually a fairly low type of electricity relating to the third aspect. So we have much to learn about this subject. And, he did say that, let us say, Masonry does not contain all that the mysteries will reveal. I think there's much that the fifth ray has to offer that will not be contained within either the Masonic Brotherhood or the church organism. Every type of ashram will have its contribution to the mysteries. There are 4 types of fire by friction. Okay, well, it fits with 4 initiations, which create the obstructing door in unison with solar fire, of which it is essentially created. So the door is essentially a solar fire configuration. The door for the first 4 initiations is essentially the substance of, the door for the first 4 initiations is essentially of the substance of solar fire. But the first 4 types of fire by friction are also aspects of the first 4 doors. So how will he describe this? This is our entree a little bit into the mysteries of electricity. So electrical energy is related to all the different vehicles of the human being. Electrical energy composed of 2 forces of electricity: the innate, inert, and latent force of the physical plane atoms of the dense physical vehicle, and I guess we called that earlier in cosmic fire latent fire, and the force which we call prana, which is an aspect of the energy composing the etheric body, and we call this radiatory fire. The latent fire is that type of matter which is passed from the previous solar system to the present. It is configured differently, and it causes, or is really, the levels of density with which we have to deal. From a cosmic perspective, I guess it involves all 21 lower subplanes from the point of view of the solar logos cosmically considered. From the microcosmic point of view, it's just the 3 lower subplanes. The 21 systemic subplanes are the 3 lower subplanes cosmically considered, and the lower 3 physical subplanes are the dense physical subplanes systemically considered. I think we, understand that. At least we have the words for it, right? So he's trying to translate our, let's just say, translating our usual understanding of the 3 lower vehicles, into electrical terminology. These 2, that is the latent fire and radiatory fire, or the electrical energy of the 2 aspects of the physical vehicle of man, that is the etheric and the physical, these 2 blend, combine, and form the door through which the spiritual man must pass when he undergoes the first initiation. So it's this first door, in a sense. First door is both physical and etheric combined. This provocative energy tests out. See, it's not as if the door is passive. It seems to provoke the man that tries to enter. This provocative energy tests out every part of his physical equipment, and as he passes the test, the door opens, the opposing energies symbolically die out, and he can pass on to the path of initiation, which in this case begins at the first degree, free from that type of obstruction. So he proves, whoops, that's not it. Find and replace. I don't want that. He proves that those type of energies no longer present a barrier to his forward movement into greater light. But we all know what can happen to the average person if they follow all of the physical instincts and even the etherically induced habits. They can go no further because they are preoccupied with that particular level. So, I can say it this way, that freedom from a certain aspect of the door is a freedom from preoccupation with particular energies. Once one passes the tests, the energies may exist, but they are no longer engrossing the attention of the individual. Such energies no longer engross the consciousness or attention of the individual, and he can place his foot upon them. He can ride upon them, as it were. They become a vehicle. So, who rules who? That's the question. Or what rules? Who rules? The physical body no longer rules him, either through its limitations and faults or through the physical disciplines which have been hitherto needed but are no longer required. If we are addicted to the habit of the physical disciplines, then we give time to them instead of to higher and further necessary achievements. It all depends how we spend our energy. If we are constantly repeating certain forms of exercise and giving our consciousness and attention to them, then we do not have consciousness and attention and energy for higher attainments. So we are provoked in a way, and we simply learn. I think athletics may be a great way to pass through this kind of test. DK talks about the Olympics and the athletic pursuits as actually being tests for initiation. How the will control the body and will control the energy which animates the body, So it's both etheric and physical control. The door opens and the opposing energies symbolically die out as he passes, and he can pass on to the path of initiation free from that type of obstruction. Let's just say, well, I think I've said this, but I'll say it again, that this level of electricity no longer captivates his consciousness. It is allowed to slip below the level of consciousness and become habitual. So right spiritual habits are already being made here. Right habits are already being achieved. We all know what it's like, to be captivated by a physical appetite, or to be captivated by certain physical habits and routines, looking at how the etheric body could induce captivation. Captivation by certain energy flows between certain chakras, instead of extending those energy flows in greater measure to higher chakras. We fail to interrupt a well-established etheric loop, and thereby do not gain the advantage of what the higher chakras can confer. Well, anyway, DK is describing the entire personality in electrical terms. The electrical energy of the astral emotional body next confronts him as he prepares to take the second initiation. Notice this interesting idea of confrontation. Sorry. So there is definitely an opponent. and that opponent is the condition of the particular vehicle in question. So we're going to be faced with quite a thorough arousing of the astral body. I'm remembering DK talked about one of his disciples who was supposed to be passing through the second initiation, and he was in an extreme state of irritation and discontent and frustration. The astral body was really throwing up much that perhaps had been hidden from him before, and DK told him, well, this is not just the ordinary astral reaction. These are the kind of tests that you will experience before taking the second initiation. Great downpour of rain just came. Here in Finland, when we're in August, it's already autumn. And coming from the United States, where August is our hottest month and autumn may not come until late this September or early November, it's quite a change. Anyway, different cycles for different places on the planet. Okay, so the electrical energy of and notice he doesn't call it a force, even though we're in the personality, he calls it an energy. So even though we are in the personality, the condition or the state, well, what do I want to call it? The vehicle is called an energy and not a force. Maybe for the word force to be appropriate, we have to talk about the application of a particular force onto a particular object. So there is the Shambhala energy when we consider it contained and on its own level, and the Shambhala force when we consider it to be applied to something that is lower in nature. Okay, so confronts him. So we definitely are we are up against our own condition. I think I'll put that in, kind of said that already, but we are up against the condition of our astral vehicle. You can call this energy, if you choose, the sum total of all the glamours. A glamour is essentially a bewildering, deceiving, and illusory energy form. I think we have a good definition here, which seeks to sidetrack and mislead the neophyte, and which is attracted to him by ancient habit and old controls. He was controlled by certain habits and directions which are no longer suitable. A glamour is essentially a bewildering, deceiving. It doesn't seem deceiving, it seems truthful, it seems correct, it seems to lead us in a highly sought-for direction. Just think of Germany in the Second World War, how it was misled by glamour. DK said, okay, Germany related to glamour, Italy to illusion, and Japan to Maya. right? So the Germans under the Nazis were convinced they were going in a glorious direction which would be totally fulfilling to them as a nation and to every individual, and ultimately good for all of humanity, the masters and the slaves, and the masters have to control. And yet they were bewildered, they were deceived, they were heading in the wrong direction, impelled by this magnetic energy in a direction which had nothing to do with the divine plan. So we can call this energy with which the individual is confronted at the second degree, the sum total of all the glamours. Well, maybe we don't quite. There's more to be rid of after the second degree as well. And there are, certain, he calls them mental glamours as well. His illusion of mental glamour. Sometimes these words, overlap. There's the great Mahamaya, there's the world illusion. They seem to contain all three levels. What we're taught to recognize as Maya, glamour, and illusion is all contained within the great illusion. It's all contained within the great Mahamaya in the larger sense. So he is therefore responsible for the impact of this energy. This type of energy takes form, and the masked forms of these glamours, he has to get through his glamours, constitute the opposing door and oppose the passage of the aspirant on the next phase of the path if he is still under the rule of these energies. If he is still under the rule of these energies. So with this electrical energy, he must deal before he takes the second initiation. And as I said, it's not that he's rid of all of them, because DK has talked about the glamours that have to be dealt with even after the second initiation, and unless candidates for the left-hand path were, unless they were under the spell of glamour, they wouldn't be taking the left-hand path when that lesser moment of decision comes at the temptations in the desert. With this electrical energy, he must deal before he takes the second initiation. So, if we see people still very much under the sway of glamour, especially some of the more familiar kinds, we cannot rightfully assume that they have taken the second initiation. These particular energies are not thought forms. They are drifting, undefined, and exceedingly fluid. But I would say this, but they are felt as attractive, driving, impelling. They move one in the wrong direction. Of this type of energy, water is the symbol, and this is one of the reasons why this second initiation is called the baptism initiation, or the initiation of entering the stream. Tranquil and clear waters must be presented, not turbulent. Turbulent. I'm not spelling that right. And murky waters. We know that it's possible for the condition of water to stir up a lot of mud from the bottom, and through the various whirlpools and eddies and all kinds of cross currents are also possible. We can have choppy waters in which the higher energy, the higher image, the sky, whatever, cannot be accurately reflected, or seems to be all divided up by the little waves which give us the illusion of fragmentation and separativeness instead of the unity of the higher life. So this these glamours which still exist, a man will be forced to see them. The candidate will be forced to see and confront these glamours, okay, before passing through this door. And there is a current in the clear stream which is entered. From this time, from the second initiation onward, a person should see more clearly and not be deluded by his own desires and his own misapprehension of himself and his place and his importance. The idea of distortion, which is exaggeration, has to be overcome. So Libra is very helpful there. Distortion and exaggeration must be overcome. And things must be seen in their true proportion. Truthfully. And it's so easy, let's just go back to Germany for a minute. It's so easy to think of themselves as the master race, as the most important human race on the planet, the most highly evolved beings and all of that. And that was simply an exaggeration of their proper position within the scheme of things. They could not see with accuracy. They were blinded by the desire to be that, and they misinterpreted some of the secret doctrine relating to the fifth subrace of the fifth root race, the Teutonic subgroup, and they inflated that the significance of that group and gave it a meaning which it was never intended to have, all out of proportion with an understanding of the real place of the races in relation to each other. Then there is the electrical energy of the mind, and that now creates the door for the third initiation, and the obstruction which confronts the initiate is that of the electrical figments. In other words, whatever you have prepared confronts you. I mean, it's just so obvious. Your condition confronts you. So what you have created confronts you. The electrical figments, your thought forms of your own thinking, shining with a light which is all their own, sort of the will-o'-the-wispy type of light, which has false allure and appears with a false reality. For shining with their own light, for they are of the highest order and type, as much as a man can create when he is having a good mind and is thinking but is not yet illumined by the intuition. Shining with the light of all their own, for they are of the highest order and type, but veiling the pure light which shines behind them. So we have a great attention to our own thoughts, and for the third-rate type, he says, love not your thought. How does he say this when we go into, I want to get this from the techniques of integration in esoteric psychology. 1, love thought not. If I spelled it right, your own, here we go. And it says, oh, how I thought it would be, but no, it's not. Psychology 1, and I know what it is. It's, let's do it. Rush not from point to point. And that should be esoteric psychology 1. Okay. Rush not from point to point. See if I can get this. Nor be deluded. No. So now I'm going to have to cancel the whole thing. So sorry. And try again. All right. So let's try again. And we'll do this. rush not from, you know what? I'm in the wrong book. I'm in the wrong book. It's Esoteric Psychology 2. That's what it is. Rush not from point to point. Okay, this is it. So he loves his own thoughts. The love of truth must dominate, and not love of my own thoughts, or love of my ideas or forms. Love of the ordered process must control, and not love of my own wild activity. So this is the third ray is given to illusion, to engrossment in Maya because of overactivity, which leads to a multiplicity of forms which veil the great unity behind. But be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am the unitary God. So the love of truth must dominate and not love of my own thoughts. So DK is here talking about the figments of our own thinking. And they constitute the sum total of illusion, we say, what we think, which is not necessarily the truth as intuition reveals it. This door is formed by the coming together of the three types of energy: fire by friction, solar fire playing in full force at this third initiation, and electrical fire from the spiritual triad. So it's a triply constituted door. So this, for the first time, is a triply constituted door, making its first impact on the other two fires, for all three are in full activity at this initiatory crisis, even the first aspect. All are localized and concentrated in that symbol of progress, the door of initiation. I mean, if we actually do reach the door of initiation, it indicates we have reaching the door of initiation indicates we have indeed made progress, but of course we must make sufficient progress to pass. So it's the sum total of illusion. Let's see, the initiate is confronted with the sum total of the illusion which he has created, not the sum total of illusion in the whole world. And similarly, it's the glamours, the sum total of glamour, which he has created, being at the second initiation. So at the second initiation, the initiate is confronted with the sum total of glamour, which he has created, or which have been attracted to him. All right. Well, we're going to, it should be increasingly clear to you why the initiate is ever portrayed as one who works with the forces and energies of the planet and of the system. All of this whole process of initiation is being defined now in terms of energy and force. And to him, we are realizing there is naught else. There is naught but energy, for God is life, and then life is energy, as we're told again in the fifth rule of the healing, the fifth law of the healing laws and rules. So, and notice we, in a way, we have to change our condition in order to pass through the door. And we are confronted by our condition and must so change it that in the particular field in which the condition occurs, a new condition supervenes. In other words, instead of a glamorous astral body, we have one that is free from glamour, and this we do on our own. And instead of mind full of illusory figments of thought, which may be very interesting in their own right, but which do not correlate with truth and with the plan. You see, remember what he says to this third grade type, love of the truth must dominate. And all these many, many thoughts may not be truthful at all, however interesting they may be. Okay. The fourth type of fire by friction which confronts the initiate as he stands prepared for that initiation which we call the Great Renunciation is the electrical energy of the entire integrated personality. This is the dweller on the threshold. This is the great opponent. This is the unified energy which confronts the one who would enter the cosmic ethers and stabilize his consciousness there. That which is the product of every incarnation, the highly developed, powerful, and clear-eyed personality, as it is called, is the final event and presents the final great obstruction. The words clear-eyed are very important. He tells us, in the case of this man who felt he was taking the fourth initiation, that he couldn't really be approaching that initiation because he was not clear-eyed. He was subject to many astral irritations and glamours and delusions. He had difficulty seeing clearly. His state of constant irritation was blinding him. You know, Mars is the planet of irritation, and it does tend to blind the individual. So it's a great privilege to approach the fourth degree, but we have to do so in a clear-eyed manner. So the entire dweller on the threshold now, and is a highly developed and powerful dweller on the threshold, is confronting the aspirant at this time. So each of the personality fields can be considered as a form of electrical fire by friction, even though the door itself, during all of these initiatory events, is composed of a combination of solar fire and fire by friction. We have to, there's maybe a two-phase process here. We have enough, you know, even though we cannot necessarily go into the scientific details of exactly how these different forms of electricity are put together, how they are constituted in technical terms, we know enough that there are opponents within our nature which must be overcome if we are to pass through that door. We have to neutralize these opponents and render the fields in which they express, we have to render them harmonious in relation to the configuration of the door. And I think, you know, we do that in two phases. First of all, we are confronted with what they are. And then we have to change their condition so that their condition harmonizes with the relationships, energy relationships found within the door. So the first stage is neutralization and changing of the condition that we are in, and the condition we are in confronts us. We have to pass through our glamours, through our illusions, and even, you know, earlier on, through our distractions and our mayas. And after we have done that, then we can pass through the door, and not before. So we ourselves, the condition of our vehicles, are our own, the condition of our vehicles is our own obstruction. And this is the final one. This is a highly powerful, integrated, effective, and good-willing and loving and willing, higher willing personality. This is a personality that is animated by the will to good. So this is indeed a formidable opponent, because there may be the tendency to place a great deal of value upon this integrated unit, which is highly developed in the causal sense, but even the causal body has to be given up. Now, in the gospel story, to which DK often refers, there are two major episodes, and note here the use of the word episodes because I think it was in the rays and the initiations that he discussed the difference between the events in the life of the Christ and the episodes in the life of the Master Jesus, and how these two had to be disentangled. The events and the episodes had to be disentangled, and it was hard to know who was in control of the body. There may have been times when the Christ was completely in control of the body, which he took over at the second initiation, but he may not have remained in it all the time, and other times when Master Jesus was really at home. So we must at some point disentangle what he calls the gold and silver threads of the Christ Jesus story. The gold represents the events, the silver represents the episodes. So in the gospel story, there are two major episodes in the life of the Master Jesus which throw some light upon this fourth entrance through the door of initiation, and these are the Transfiguration and Crucifixion. Now, this is the question, who is taking these? The Master Jesus, as Joshua, the high priest, had already taken the third degree, and long before that, long before he was Krishna, the Lord Maitreya had taken the third degree in Atlantis in a fourth ray ashram along with the Buddha, so that may be some millions of years ago. So who was demonstrating, enacting the Transfiguration? Was it the was it the initiate Jesus, or was it the Christ? Either one of them could have done so, but given the light display that existed, maybe it might be reasonable to consider that it was the Christ himself. For the crucifixion, Master Jesus had to pass through that, and yet the Christ was the overshadowing presence, with himself taking the sixth degree, or an aspect of the sixth degree, which maybe began in the Garden of Gethsemane, while the initiate Jesus was taking the fourth degree. In both of these initiations, in both of them, the three aspects of the personality are symbolized. So in the first case, they are symbolized by the three apostles. That's in the Transfiguration. The three apostles who in bewilderment and profound humility took part in the third initiation. They prostrated themselves before this great luminiferous demonstration of seemingly coming through Jesus, but actually was it the Christ who was at home at that point, and was the Christ demonstrating a huge light, with Elijah maybe on one side and maybe Master M on the other side, Moses and Elijah, those were, he said that Elijah and Moses were with us, okay. So was it the Christ demonstrating through the vehicle of Jesus the Transfiguration? In the second case, the three were the three crosses, the two thieves and the central master. Now, we can relate these three crosses to the three crosses of astrology, with the unrepentant thief on the mutable cross, which relates to the cross of personality, the unredeemed personality. The second cross of the repentant thief being the fixed cross, in which one is struggling to be the soul. That's the cross of the soul. Even this very day you shall be in heaven with me, the Christ, or Jesus, said to the repentant thief. It was Jesus who was enacting, but we cannot really tell what was the interplay between the overshadowing sixth degree master, or Chohan, the Christ, and the one passing through the Great Renunciation, the crucifixion, Jesus. What the nature of that interplay may have been, we are in no position to assess. What was said, what was conveyed, what was the cooperation while on the cross. When Jesus said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He may well have been speaking of the solar angel who returned to the heart of the sun. We could also speculate that there was a moment when he was left pendant between heaven and earth, without the Lord Maitreya especially to support him. But then we just don't know. A higher power of some kind left him at that point, and he was left on his own. So the difference in the fourth initiation is definite. It lies in the fact, a difference from the earlier three initiations, it lies in the fact that the four aspects of the personality, counting the dense physical body as one aspect, so dense physical body one aspect, and the etheric vehicle is the second aspect, the astral body is the third aspect, and the lower mind is the fourth. They are all involved. Therefore, this fourth emanation of fire by friction has a potent and destructive effect upon the dense physical body. That must be left behind. Maybe the etheric body can be retained and the other subtle principles, and through that etheric body, perhaps some very powerful demonstration of higher energies can occur. There was at the Resurrection some, it seemed, glowing, etheric-like demonstration where it was either Jesus or the Christ was telling the woman, was it one of the Marys, not to touch him, for he had not yet ascended to the Father. It sounds like an electrical demonstration through the etheric body. So the Great Renunciation involves the rejection of physical life at any cost, and that cost frequently involves its physical death. I mean, well, you think about Father Damien and you think about the Initiate Jesus. They are mentioned in the same breath, and they are spoken of as distinct from Hitler and his death. So the death of these two is a deliberate renunciation of the physical body for the sake of the greater love. In the case of the Initiate Jesus, it was a swift death, relatively, well, very painful, but related, in 3 hours. Let's just say the death occurred within 3 hours. In the case of Father Damien, he contracted leprosy from those he was serving, and when you look at the pictures of him, you realize that long, slow death from leprosy was an agonizing factor, but then he was somehow fortified within, I feel, probably by the presence of the Master Jesus. When I look at Father Damien, I say, well, it looks to me like a sixth ray soul taking the fourth initiation, and in that case he would have been supported very much by the Master Jesus, even though his outer vehicle was crumbling. When we look at the three who prostrated themselves, there was a 3 and a 1. I mean, there was the Initiate Jesus, or the Christ through his vehicle, the 3 prostrating in the 1. When we look at the 3 crosses, however, it's a little bit different because Jesus is on the 3rd cross. So each one of the crosses represents one aspect of divinity. It represents, in a way, the 3 periodical vehicles. So the threefoldness there is somewhat different, but perhaps the 3 before the 1, if we're looking for a parallel with the Transfiguration, could be in relation to the Lord Maitreya taking an aspect of the 6th initiation and overshadowing the entirety here, overshadowing the 3. So yeah, he would have been entering into the state of conscious monad. I suppose the 6th initiation really began in the Garden of Gethsemane when he acquiesced to the will of God, and then continued at the crucifixion when he was overshadowing the Initiate Jesus, and who knows how many, the ascension was involved. There are different phases of these higher initiations. Who knows how long really they require to complete. It seems that the 7th initiation is taking centuries or even millennia to complete, probably both for the Buddha and for the Christ, because it is not until toward the end of the Aquarian Age that they both will pass before the planetary Logos. That's who gives this complete 7th initiation, and then be on their way to higher forms of service, which are all unknown to us. Well, friends, I wonder, it's such a painful thing when you are talking and you think you're saying something of value and you only discover that your microphone is off. And I've done that several times. So I'm trying to see, did I catch up with all I had intended to say? This Great Renunciation, of course, is a great privilege. It's a great privilege. You have to earn the right to take it. And in the West, the loss of the dense physical vehicle is more probable than in the East. There, perhaps, the Great Renunciation is done more through meditative techniques, and one may retain the dense physical body and pass on to the fifth degree, retaining that dense vehicle, and not have to take the fifth degree either out of the body or through a Maya Virupa, but through a dense physical vehicle. Maybe Master DK did that. There's no reason to think that his physical vehicle was a Maya Virupa, not yet, and it was a vehicle in which he was living the fourth degree as a renunciant, and in which by 1875 we are told he took a mastership. So it seems to have been in the same vehicle, but we see that for Master Jesus it wasn't. He, we call him Master Jesus now, the Initiate Jesus at the time. And later he took the fifth degree as Apollonius of Tyana, which does not mean he had to have been born as Apollonius of Tyana, but simply that he would take over the physical vehicle of Apollonius of Tyana, who's essentially born before the Initiate Jesus died. That has to be factored in. He took over the vehicle of Apollonius of Tyana, that's my estimate, and then went through the fifth degree in that vehicle, perhaps with Apollonius, already a high disciple, standing by, just as the Initiate Jesus had stood by when the Christ wanted to use his vehicle to put in his appearance in Palestine and to enact a major impact in his world saviorship, in the process of world saviorship. So it is my hope that I have succeeded in making up for the loss. One will never know exactly, except maybe in the, I have been recording this. So if I give you the recording, then it's possible that if I said something else, if I give you the audio recording, if I said something else or something additional, it will be in the audio recording. But probably the major ideas are there. The major episodes in the life of Master Jesus, and they would be episodes in a sense, or reenactments anyway, in the first case, and major events affecting all of humanity in the life of the Christ. But for Master Jesus, for the Initiate Jesus at the time, the Transfiguration was an episode. He wasn't really passing through it. He was part of the reenactment, we might say, and the crucifixion was a definite episode, and yet as well, because of the overshadowing Christ, an event. Okay, and we always see how the three have to prostrate themselves before the one, and sometimes when we divide things into four, they have to prostrate themselves before the fifth, we might say, and then we have the pyramidal form, the four at the base, which would be the physical, dense physical, etheric, emotional, lower mental, with the soul at the apex point. And there is a considerable difference. You don't have to necessarily sacrifice your dense physical vehicle at the earlier three initiations, but at the fourth, it seems to be a frequent requirement. Okay, well, we'll move on here, hoping to avoid such mishaps because the era of silent movies is over. The Great Renunciation, or the fourth initiation, has, therefore, two aspects. Okay, let's see what this means. The outer involvement, or the objective happening, in the eyes of the physical plane onlooker, and the subjective aspect portrayed symbolically by the three crosses and those who hung upon them. Well, you know, for the world, the crucifixion was a huge event, and has conditioned Western civilization for 2,000 years. Now, in the life of the one undergoing the renunciation, we have here the condition of humanity and the whole the possible evolutionary unfoldment of humanity to a point of victory. So the evolutionary unfoldment of humanity to the point of victory is portrayed in the three crosses, all the way from the unredeemed state in which we are on the wheel of form and on the cross of many changes, where we're simply gathering experience under the impulse of desire, and then our transition upon the fixed cross into the ability to live the life of the soul, and finally, well, we can't really say we're on the Cardinal Cross yet, you know. And I think this is something that maybe I should have specified earlier. The initiate Jesus did not really hang upon the Cardinal Cross yet. That would be more at the fifth degree, achieved in his next sort of tulku incarnation. It's a term that means you take over the vehicle or manifest through the vehicle of one of your disciples. So the three crosses are usually portrayed as the mutable cardinal, not mutable, fixed, and cardinal, but in a sense it was Master Jesus' own cross. It just as it is for every fourth degree initiate, it's neither the fixed nor is it the cardinal, but it's our own cross to bear. Of course, it hints at the Cardinal Cross. It's the Christ himself who is truly on the Cardinal Cross, and he was the one who represents the Cardinal Cross, just as Sanat Kumara is on the Cardinal Cross, the Christ overshadowing the initiate Jesus, and who is taking the sixth initiation, or an aspect of it, is on the Cardinal Cross. So in a way you have four crosses represented at the crucifixion. The unrepentant thief on the mutable cross, the repentant thief on the fixed cross, the initiate Jesus on his own cross between two crosses, the cross that has to be overturned, and then the Lord Maitreya as the becoming sixth degree initiate on the Cardinal Cross. That makes four altogether. It's a point that, you know, I hadn't really thought about before this time, but, you know, and whether correct or incorrect, that tends to be the way that this mode of presentation works. Ideas come more fluidly, more spontaneously. The implications emerging out of this symbolism are not easy to see, even when the superficial meaning is apparent, because that superficial meaning hides and veils a universal reality. Well, you know, Western civilization has been very confused about what is Jesus and what is Christ. We call that dual appearance Jesus Christ, or the Christed Jesus. But we suspect that it's simply an energy, that Christ's Jesus, and not an entity. And, the Christ is both an entity and an energy. He is both. And the Christing of Jesus is the overshadowing of Jesus by the Lord Maitreya, and the assumption of the vehicle of the initiate Jesus by the Lord Maitreya. So as he says, it's not easy to see, even when the superficial meaning is apparent, because something greater lies behind all this, something of planetary, systemic, and even cosmic universal reality. The Master Jesus, that is, the one who is now the Master Jesus, passed through the door of the fourth initiation and overcame the final hindrances offered by his perfected personality. I mean, there's so many things he could have done with that personality, but he had to offer it up as part of the divine plan communicated to him by the overshadowing Lord Maitreya and his understanding of the plan. He died upon the cross. All the four aspects of his personality participated in the event, and we saw how DK divided the four aspects, separating the dense physical from the etheric. All the four aspects of his personality participated in the event, and all four aspects electrically obstructed his passing through this door. He had much to overcome, and I suppose we will discover the nature of the strength of the personality when that occurs for us. We will discover the strength, the great strength of the personality when this event occurs for us. Well, it may be an episode when compared with the events that the Christ participated in, but for us it will be an event. So even to the point of their complete destruction, bringing a final liberation. So all the four aspects of his personality participated in the event, and all four aspects electrically obstructed his passing through the door. Maybe, we get the sense that he really had to wrestle with a formidable foe, because that foe was so perfected in terms of what humanity can achieve. So the question is, why relinquish this, and why relinquish the causal body as well? That is the even harder relinquishment. But it does bring a final liberation of victory in terms of what a human being can achieve, and a liberation into the cosmic ethers and out of the regime which is still largely controlled by the previous solar system, and into the regime controlled by the logos of, or the stage in which our solar logos is now expressing. It's a second major stage. No longer victim to the energy impress of his first major stage, as was demonstrated in the previous solar system. Something universal was also symbolized, which had naught to do with the initiated Master Jesus. Now, you kind of wonder why he's calling him Master at this point. Mastership really occurred at the next, in the next number of years, during the life of Apollonius of Tyana, which was the invested life of the initiate Jesus. This symbolism and its meaning are related to the three crosses which stood side by side, and to the relationship of those who hung upon these crosses. In the three figures, humanity itself is portrayed, and is also related to the hierarchy, and this pictorial event is a parallel to the one already considered, the initiation of the Master Jesus. So which is which? The crucifixion was obvious, but the internal meaning was not. In the crucifixion, in this fourth passing through the door of initiation, when everything obstructs your way, everything that the condition of perfection is obstructing your way. It's not some lower condition which is seemingly an obstacle, justifiably an obstacle. It is the high condition of the vehicles which is the obstacle. And I think I will, in the crucifixion, in this fourth passing through the door of initiation, in which the perfection of the personality itself presents the obstacle, and not some lower condition of a personality vehicle. Yes. Okay. So, our own perfections become the source of our sins. It would be a sin if we refuse to move on. It's been said, you have the choice of fear or guilt. Which would you choose? If you if you stay where you are, you experience guilt. If you move on, you experience fear. Which is better? And I would say that it's better to experience fear and overcome it than to experience the guilt of not moving on and staying fixated in relation to a stage which should have been outlived. At least that's my view on the subject. In the crucifixion, in this fourth passing through the door of initiation, and in the staging of this event, now notice, the fourth initiation has often so much to do with drama. Fourth initiation has much to do with drama, and so does the fourth ray, which rules this initiation. So there's a dramatization for the sake of those who are onlooking, for the sake of those who see. In the crucifixion, in this fourth passing through the door of initiation, and in the staging of this event, two great and different individualities, and this is where, the average Christian will choke on sentences like this because it just seems like the most blatant type of heresy. Two great and different individualities were involved, the Master Jesus and the world Savior, the Christ. They are implicated. It's really two great beings are involved, and we just have to make that outline in that way, highlighted. Two major happenings are indicated, and the Christian Church has confused the two and related both of them without discrimination to the Master Jesus. You kind of wonder how they could help it, because there was no great occult intelligence at that time and no great knowledge of how these things could occur, although to the disciples, I'm thinking about this maybe for the first time, the Christ had to have imparted some notion that the Jesus that the apostles knew was his student, was the student of the Christ. Probably did the apostles know this? Sometimes you kind of wonder whether St. Paul, who did so much to present Christianity to the world, or what became Christianity, did he know? That is a question. But they were told of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, at least some of them, so one would begin to think that they knew something. Again, it's one of those questions which has to remain unanswered. Certainly the way the Christian Church developed, it forgot all this if any of the apostles knew it, or if any of the apostles were able somehow to convey this. But then, the whole question of reincarnation might come into consideration, and that type of thought was minimized, the emphasis de-emphasized during the age of Pisces. It might, maybe except in esoteric Christian circles. I heard a peculiar story told to me by a German friend who had been hearing about the cardinals talking among themselves, speculating as to what were the previous incarnations of the present Pope. So it's almost as if, they know something, but they have this reluctance to share it with the masses, lest there be some sort of rebellion or untoward reaction or destabilization of the Church and its power. I thought that was amusing, Okay, so the Christian Church has confused the two and related both of them without discrimination to the Master Jesus. Yet one event was a hierarchical occurrence, and the other was a great human crisis. And I think, right there, he's telling us the story. We all of us have to enact the fourth initiation, but long ago, the Lord Maitreya had done this in the individual sense, maybe some 3,000 years before this enactment by the initiate Jesus. One was the entrance of an initiate into the mysteries of death, involving in the process all the four aspects of his nature, and that is the obviously the the crucifixion. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Maybe you'll allow me to do this. CRU. I'd like that crucifixion. I think we're going to be talking about that quite a bit, so I think I need a... oh, I had one already. I see that. I had that. But anyway, the crucifixion of the initiate Jesus, Yeshua. The other was a dramatic portrayal to mankind of the three groups to be found within the human family. So, maybe the human, let's see what he means by the hierarchical occurrence and the other a great human crisis. You see, maybe he's reversing these. Well, unregenerate man, pictured as the unrepentant thief. So we have to understand, it's important, we have to understand that there is such a thing as unregenerate man. And this involves some understanding of reincarnation. Well, of course, maybe there's a lesser understanding of unregenerate man. If you simply repent, you regenerate yourself and so forth. But unregenerate man, well, it takes a long time to enter that phase where one wants to regenerate oneself. Of course, this is hidden from most. Then the struggling aspirant moving consciously towards liberation, symbolized for us in the repentant thief. And if you are an aspirant, this could be on the fixed cross. And then the hierarchy, composed of all who have passed to liberation, at least at the fourth degree, through the medium of human experience. The culmination of human experience is occurring there at the fourth degree, and thereby representing to us the guarantee of achievement. So a huge teaching was being given through the three crosses. I'll put that. So one event was a hierarchical occurrence, the other was a great human crisis. And maybe he means by the hierarchical occurrence, maybe he does mean the entry into the mysteries of death. And by the great human crisis, maybe he means the dramatic portrayal to mankind of the three groups found in the human family. Maybe that is what he means. Students would do well to keep this fourfold picture and this threefold symbol clearly distinguished in their mind. For individual attainment and the group possibilities are both involved. Well, in what way do we have the three? We have the three crosses. And in what way do we have the fourfoldness? The fourfoldness involves the four dramatic personae, one of whom was invisible, and that is the overshadowing Christ himself. So we have the unrepentant thief, repentant thief, the initiate Jesus, and the overshadowing Christ. This is a fourfold picture, at least one way of looking at the fourfold picture, and the threefold symbol of the three crosses. He doesn't actually relate them in this context to the three crosses we use in astrology, but maybe in the astrology book he may have done that. But we do have to remember, it's so important to remember, and he qualifies this at a certain point, that the fourth initiation is not taken on either cross. It's not taken on the fixed, and it's not taken on the cardinal. So it's, in a way, I just call it taking it on one's own cross. Okay, the threefold symbol and the fourfold picture and the threefold symbol clearly distinguished. Although I think he may mean something other than here than I have portrayed it. But anyway, the way I portrayed it, at least there's a four there, and we can figure out the other thing he may mean by the fourfold picture. Each is, however, distinct. In the one case, the Master Jesus is the participator, and in the other, well, he's one of those who hang upon the cross, and in the other, and the more esoteric occurrence, it is the one who overshadows him, the Christ, making the fourth. Okay? It was the Master Jesus. We continue to refer to him now as the Master Jesus. Really, at that time, he was the Initiate Jesus. It was the Master Jesus who died. In other words, he gives the quotations around that because he didn't really die, but and who knows what he did with the Christ during those days before the resurrection of the former vehicle, so that it could be recognized and demonstrate to humanity a tremendous truth about the higher energies and their power over matter. It was the Master Jesus who died and entered into the tomb, thus climaxing his long series of incarnations, probably beginning in the previous solar system, I would guess, and ending by destruction. The hold of matter on the spirit. Destroy the hold of matter on the spirit. So that's the kind of destruction it is. That's what's being destroyed. It's not like, you know, your life is being destroyed. Life is not being destroyed. It is the grip of matter. The grip of matter is being destroyed. It's kind of like a reversed expression of Vulcan. We're talking about Vulcan representing the hold of the soul upon the personality, but Vulcan is also the grip of matter. When Vulcan is lunar, it is a grip of the matter upon the soul spirit, and that is destroyed. Through the tomb, he passed into the hierarchy. Well, he had been a member of the hierarchy in a sense, as a high priest, initiate of the third degree, but definitely into the hierarchy, and so thus we might call it a hierarchical event. And the destiny of the Christian church was what then, perhaps, committed to him? Did he see at that time something more than he had seen before? Did he see at that time something he did not see before as to his duties? And that destiny still lies in his hands. Some people might think, you know, that we hear of different masters changing rays and going on to different duties, but I feel pretty confident in leaving things the way DK stated them in his last book, realizing that he would take up the thread of teaching again some 75 years ahead, or maybe 80 years ahead. No, you know, between 75 and 80 years ahead. So I think he had no reason to offer misstatements. You know, it's the easiest thing in the world to create illusion by imagining that things are suddenly rearranged in a manner that suits one's fancy, and that all that is given in the very solid foundational books has suddenly been abrogated because there's been a change of plans, and now this new teacher was aware of the change of plans and now gives you the change of plans. Well, you know, let's wait and see what the third installment says. We have great faith that that is coming. So that destiny still lies in his hands. Okay. He talked about that way back in Initiation, Human and Solar, 30 years before he was writing this, or some 27 or 8 years before he was writing this. And he's still writing about it here in the, was it that long? Yeah, he's still, I guess he started writing this stuff in 1946, part 2. So it's at least 26 years that he was writing about the Master Jesus being the head of the Christian church. But in the gospel story, it is the Christ who is indicated as appearing after the resurrection. Okay, that clarifies the matter. And not the Master Jesus, although it is through the Master Jesus' vehicle, isn't it? Except in the one brief episode wherein he appeared to Mary, weeping outside the door of the sepulchre. Okay, so, okay. It is the Christ who is indicated as appearing after the resurrection and maybe on the road to Emmaus, is that what it's called? Except in the one brief episode where he appeared to Mary, weeping outside the door of the sepulchre. So maybe Jesus appeared appeared once. And I have to get it straight. At one point he said, "Do not touch me, for I have not yet ascended unto the Father." Of course, Jesus was not going to take the sixth initiation of ascension, and it was the Christ that was. The other episodes are universal in their implication and are indicated by. Now, of course, elsewhere he calls them events. Okay. So are these really episodes, in the sense that DK indicated the contrast between episodes and events, or is it just the use of the word episodes? So I guess it looks like it's the Master Jesus appearing outside the tomb, and was it there that he said, "Do not touch me, for I have not yet ascended"? I'll have to check that out. Maybe you check it out too. Can't know everything, and my biblical history is maybe a little wanting, especially since I was raised in the Jewish religion, which didn't go all that much into the New Testament. I had to pick that up as a church choir director for 10 years. So that was my age of Pisces lasted 10 years as a church choir director in 4 different churches: Congregational, Methodist, Presbyterian, and then again Methodist, I guess, later. 3 different denominations and 4 different church choir jobs. I got to listen to a lot of sermons, and I got to know the New Testament. Maybe not inside out, but quite a bit. Maybe at first I was a reluctant listener, but gradually I became engaged. Well, it was a bit of a challenge to some of the churches I worked with, because later, I was a Jewish astrologer conducting the choir in the Methodist Church. Well, okay, that was a bit hard to swallow, but somehow it worked. All right. So the other episodes are universal in their implications, as indicated by Christ walking with the 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus, a symbol of the essential dualism of spirit and matter as embodied in a world Savior. So everything had a teaching value. The Christ is not reappearing for no good reason. So, as he says, universal in their implications. Not just comforting the woman weeping beside the door, the mother aspect, and the risen Son. Not just that, but more. Then Christ appearing to the disciples in the upper room, symbolizing the zodiac. For Judas Iscariot was there, standing for the sign at the time in power, and that would have been Aries, I guess. The other 11 disciples representing the remaining signs through which the Son must pass. But we do remember that did the Christ suddenly appear there, or did he come in by normal means? This is part of the normal biblical narrative, Christ in the upper room with his disciples. Let's see. The destiny still lies, but in the gospel stories, the Christ was indicating as appearing after the resurrection and not the Master Jesus. Notice he uses the word resurrection there, not as a meaning the 7th initiation, but the standard meaning of initiation. Now, so maybe I, again, have my biblical history a little backwards. It looks as if there was an appearing of the Christ in the upper room that was not the Last Supper, if it's after the resurrection. So, if this appearing, and it sounds like the word, appearing was after the resurrection, then after the resurrection, then this could not have been the Last Supper. Okay, I just have to study the Bible a little more carefully here. You know, once you start going with Master Decay, except for the fact that he mentions it all the time, the tendency might be not to study the Bible so much. He does say it is a book for those upon the probationary path, but okay, it has so much of value, and if you've ever read the red letter versions of the Bible, let's say the King James Version, and you hear what the Christ said, or what he is reputed to have said, they're all in the red letters. They're so direct. They're so incredibly direct and full of teaching value, and they are representative, really, of a first-ray mind. He tells us that the Christ's rays are the second-ray soul, the sixth-ray personality, the first-ray mind. Obviously, you know, it would have to be seventh-ray physical and a second-ray astral vehicle as well, and a second-ray monad. It would have to be. But the first-ray mind really comes through in the red letters of what he said. Even the color red is appropriate for that. And then Pentecost. This event, notice he calls it an event, and earlier he calls it an episode. So we ask, is this an event or an episode? I think he's using the word episode not in a technical sense like he does when he talks about disentangling the events and the episodes and the gold and silver threads. You know, sometimes he will use a word very specifically, and sometimes he'll use it generally. This event does not portray the triumph of Orthodox Christianity, as the theologians believe and teach, but signifies the universal dissemination of the Christ consciousness throughout all time in the heart of every human being. To this the words and promise, lo, I am with you even unto the end of the days or world, bear witness. That's so, you know, lesser minds are always inclined to interpret things in narrower terms, and DK is expanding our vision greatly here. All right, so it is owing to the deeply esoteric meaning of the resurrection and the ascension and their major significance, referring to the consciousness of the Christ, that nothing much is told about these initiations in the New Testament except for the vaguest generalities in contradistinction to the wealth of detail given anent the four. Because after all, we are still personalities here, and we're members of the fourth kingdom, and we're still very human, and the number 4 applies to us. But the resurrection is more than the resurrection following the death of the Master Jesus. I mean, that was a glorious event, in a way more glorious in terms of the will than the Transfiguration. But there is a higher resurrection as well, about which nothing is known. And as far as the ascension is concerned, only the Christ could be achieving that. So, you know, the acceptance in the Garden of Gethsemane, the acquiescence, the overshadowing of the Master or Initiate Jesus on the cross, and the ascension, all of these have to do with the life of the Christ and his initiatory process at the 6th degree. And, you know, how it is he began the 7th initiation at that time, I don't think much is given, but if he ascended to the right hand of the Father, he ascended to the logoic plane, and the logoic plane is the 7th plane from below and has to do with the 7th initiation. So probably it was the beginning of that 7th initiation. 4 of these initiations are related to the door of initiation as occultly understood, and with the interpretation of which we are familiar. Now we're familiar. These 4 are related also to the electrical fire by friction of which the door is constructed, although it is not solely constructed, you know. In other words, we have solar fire is part of the construction, as DK has said. It's part of the construction. and which spreads to and creates, okay, these four are related to the electrical fire by friction of which the door is constructed, and which spreads to and creates the burning ground across which the initiate must 4 times move in order to enter through the door. And basically, how can we look at this? Maybe let's look at it this way. Okay, whoops, we don't want that. We want a number 1. I wonder if I can get a number 1 out of that. Restart at 1. Okay. You are confronted by the condition of your vehicles within the personality. Okay. Now, as you cross the burning ground, you change the condition of your vehicles and harmonize them with the obstruction, with the electrical obstruction through which you must pass. And then only can you pass through. So there are 3 phases here through which you must go through. And it's interesting that the fire by friction of the door spreads to and creates the burning ground. Here we have, this is really, how is the burning ground created? Well, psychologically we're told about holding a point of tension and so forth. But here we're given another understanding of how the burning ground is created in a technical occult sense. So this is how the burning ground is created, at least partially created, because the attitude of the candidate also creates the burning ground. In other words, as you hold a particular point of tension in line with the higher will, it creates the burning ground. And so let's talk about that too. Holding a particular point of tension in accordance with the higher will. Whoops. No, okay, higher will is also how the burning ground is created. But I'm finding this really interesting that from the door of initiation and its fire by friction in the first 4 initiations, the burning ground is created. Well, let's just say, I'll say a little more. The other 2 initiations, vaguely called the Resurrection and Ascension, are related to the second so-called door. The door is not, in the same sense, an obstruction as is the first door. It opens onto the way of higher evolution according to one's choice, right? So, okay, according to one's choice. The first door symbolically admits the initiate into the heart of the sun, which is the soul nature of the solar logos, sometimes called the subjective sun, and, there are different locations for its influence, sometimes on the cosmic astral plane and sometimes on the second sub-level of the cosmic physical plane. But anyway, its real home is the higher part of the cosmic mental plane. The first door symbolically admits the initiate into the heart of the sun, whilst the second door, in a most mysterious sense, obviously we can't get that, indicates the route which must be followed. It is not admitting the initiate yet. It indicates the route which must be followed by the liberated initiate who seeks to penetrate to the central spiritual sun to which all 7 paths lead. And, it's just got to be the Pleiades, I think. That great cluster of, let's say, 1,000 stars, even though the number so far counted is less. Okay, so not yet admitting to the Pleiades, but indicating the route through planets and constellations, and finally to the Pleiades. Yeah, well, and then of course we're told nothing at all about the true resurrection, which is the 7th degree, and which DK discusses a little bit later in, just a brief paragraph. What could we possibly know about it, except that it does exist, and we should contrast those two resurrections. Well, okay, friends, I think I've come to the point where I've got about 2 hours under my belt here, and really 2 hours and 19 minutes. Problem is, I went into the silent movie mode there for about 20 minutes. And, well, you know, I always hate it when I do that. And I don't do it but maybe twice a year. But when I do, I have these regrets. What did I miss, you know, and all that. But anyway, enough is said to help us with the study of this section. So we're going to go on, and, you know, we're going to go on to end of Raise and Initiation Webinar Commentaries Program 9. And I don't know what page we're on here. I suppose we're on page 356. And where did it begin? Well, let's just say ending 356. That'll be enough. Ending page 356 and beginning of something else. And I'm not sure what. Beginning not of the next section, because I have done this. I have done this in another commentary with text also from Initiation, Human and Solar, and from a treatise on cosmic fire. Okay, this is called a TCF. I've done this already, so that's in the cosmic fire sections discussing the path. I brought all the information in from this book and from Initiation, Human, Solar, so I'm not going to repeat that. And we'll see where we go shortly. Where will we go? Where will we start? But it will be beyond this next 10-page section. Okay, friends, that's going to be it for the moment. And I'll start somewhere, and then you can interpolate. As a matter of fact, when I get going to discuss the initiations, I'm going to take these large compilations that I have on the initiations, and I'm not just going to only talk about what's in this book. I'm going to bring in the other information about the initiations, so it will expand this work, but it will be more complete. Okay, we'll see you for program, beginning of program, Raise and Initiation Webinar Commentary, program 10. Okay, until then, with mishaps aside, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.